Well, that was an interesting anime. Watching anime from the 2000s to early 2010s era can be interesting to say the least. There's just something about the general aesthetic some anime from this time period possess that can make them wildly entertaining, but it can be a bit difficult to explain just what makes it such in some cases. For those who've watched plenty of shows from this era, you completely understand what I mean by that. For those who haven't, I'm going to try my best to explain it here. Many shows from this era possess a similar consistent ambiance, vibe, whatever you want to call it, throughout the entire show. It's usually more quizzical in nature. Long moments within the show are spent just pondering or thinking of what to do next. These moments are also a bit calming and, at least for me, oddly nostalgic, probably since they feel similar to other shows I watched growing up. The shows that fit into this mold from this era are not only usually sci-fi works, but they also have this odd philosophical atmosphere tied to them, focusing much more on their themes than the average anime. These works are usually slow developing and odd in their own ways, but at the same time that weirdness kind of captivates you, because you want answers not only to the story, but as to why this show appeals to you in the first place, so you continue watching. Examples of this type of anime include The Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya, Ergo Proxy, and Zammed Lost Memories. While these shows are obviously not one-to-one similar like many generic isekai that release every season are, they do to some extent have similar atmospheres, feeling both nostalgic and odd to varying degrees. To some, especially those with very short attention spans nowadays, many of these shows are very unappealing, but for me, these shows are interesting. I appreciate it when an anime tries something unique, regardless of the outcome, and anime from this era definitely attempts that and intrigues me the most. So, all of that introductory talk was for the purpose of this anime review. I found yet another interesting anime that fits this 2000s to early 2010s anime aesthetic named Fractale. Man, did it have a start that intrigued me right away, but in the same breath, man, it is wildly disappointing, clearly not possessing good direction. So what is Fractale even about? Your guess is probably as good as mine if you read the synopsis for it. It is a confusing sci-fi show that lacks direction. It focuses much more on the presentation of its themes and atmosphere, which aren't very well done in themselves, than trying to create a coherent overarching plot. This anime is the perfect example of focusing on style over substance. The sci-fi anime Fractale follows Klein and his journey of learning the secret behind the fractal system which dominates much of the world. It is a system on the brink of collapse, implanted within people's bodies that ensures that people live convenient, peaceful, and technology-driven lives. This may sound wonderful, but at the same time, through the lens of Klein, you see just how much this type of lifestyle has robbed people of so much, but none worse than the loss of their humanity. Human connections with one another outside of the system are exceedingly rare, since people spend their time focusing on their own interests in isolation. Klein understands this the most since his own parents don't even live with him, since they'd rather be doing their own thing. Without this system in place, people struggle to form coherent thoughts and act more like puppets instead of genuine people, showcasing that they've actually given away their own freedom to Fractale. Yes, their lives may have become easier, but at what cost? The concept of this show is interesting, however its execution is subpar. So what did Fractale do well? The fact that it is the embodiment of 2000s to early 2010s anime, aka what I talked about in the beginning of this video. It possesses a specific atmosphere that you will understand once you watch it, and that in itself is something that I can enjoy. Klein is also a decent character overall, as is Sunda, the leader of an anti-fractal group. The world building is also fairly decent overall. Unfortunately, that's where the good ends. The bad of this anime is literally everything else. The problem with Fractale is that it took this anime era's enjoyable atmosphere and prioritized only that. It puts all the focus on style and doesn't put any thought into the story, the rest of the characters, or anything else for that matter. Fractale's existence, why it is collapsing, and its need to be rebooted all confused the hell out of me. Those parts of the story are talked about so little, never being fully answered, and the tidbits of information we do get are completely disjointed, confusing the viewer even further. The pacing for this story was garbage, especially since this idea clearly needed more episodes to develop it further and better explain things that happened. As a viewer, you are left guessing for so many different things and are just expected to be okay with that, and the ending will definitely not satisfy you in the slightest. The focus of the story is on Klein, his adventure with the Grants clan, aka the Lost Millennium terrorist group, and the little things within Fractale's world. What I mean by the little things, I mean living a simple, grounded life, forming relationships with one another, and building up a community, the different themes throughout the anime. The The mere inclusion of certain themes and issues is not what makes something good. They need to be nurtured, built up, and shown through both the events of the anime and the characters. Alas, in this case, they were not, ultimately making them feel like an afterthought, used to mask how bad this show is. It tries to be this deep and philosophical work, but never attempts to develop those aspects, showcasing that the creators had no idea what they were doing. If the story's execution is weak but still entertaining, the characters can help lift the series, but in Fractale's case, that doesn't happen. The characters fell into one of two categories. They were either boring or annoying. Fractale needed to find a good balance of style and substance, but while watching it, all I got was style. Everything about it focused on that unique atmosphere, and never once did it try to make the rest of it coherent. The anime is also filled with multiple very weird and rapey scenes. I felt like these scenes were added purely for the randomness and shock value, but were completely unnecessary overall, adding absolutely nothing to the show. Throw in the stupidity from both sides, an absolute worst of standard anime tropes. I should have dropped this anime, since it's definitely not good. Why do I subject myself to watching shows like this? Clearly, my curiosity is far too powerful, and I need to tone it back just a bit, but I just love watching these lesser known titles in hopes of finding a hidden gem. When I watch a really good underrated show, it feels like I've just struck gold, so I will not be stopping anytime soon. I give Fractale a 3 out of 10. The concept had some potential and was interesting, but the execution was poor, in part because of the 11 episode time constraint. This anime is yet another example of if it were longer, then it potentially could have been a better series, but unfortunately that isn't the case, and it's definitely not a good one. As usual, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.